time to read emails that we received?
That's
as well?
I was just looking up. Do you want me to read? Did everyone get Mary's email today?
Mary Somnus?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
No.
Oh, I see why. So, should I read Mary's, and
Sure.
then do you want to read Dave's? I don't know where that went to.
I think just to me.
Oh, all right. Okay, we have 2 emails commenting on the same topic.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure where all they went, but now I see the answer to that. So this is from Mary Somnus. We won't read the reason. She was going to come in person, but that didn't work, so she sent an email instead. From Mary Somnus, HRA Board Chair, I am, of course, in favor of rezoning the land at the northwest corner of 5th Avenue West and the Gunflint Trail for residential use. For 10 months, since the day he came to Cook County, Jason Hale has been working hard at finding sites, funding, and developers for housing projects. With Jason's good work, the HRA Board is cautiously optimistic that this site is the one that has potential to provide homes to a good number of families and employees. I understand that you will not be voting on this tonight. Thank you for your consideration, your leadership, and your partnership. Sincerely, Mary Somnus.
And from Dave Mills, I feel like really to honor Dave's legacy of service to the city, I should wait until we've moved on and then come back to this.
At least it will be in the proper order.
Yes, then it'll feel right. And that's for calling me Administrator Roth and the opener, Dave. Please have this comment read at tonight's City Council meeting. Dear Mayor Benson and councilors, I am the property owner of 800 Creechville Road and 820 Creechville Road since 2005, 18 years, and lived and raised 2 kids at 800 Creechville Road for 12 years. Creechville is near and dear to my heart, and my children have many formative memories there. There are many questions and concerns surrounding the potential Sawtooth Flats project up in Creechville that should be addressed. There is still much careful planning that needs to be done to ensure any project on the property is appropriate and good for our community. At this point in the process, the only decision that needs to be made is whether or not the parcel should be zoned to allow for a residential possibility. The Grand Marais Planning and Zoning Commission recognizes this and believes in good process. Please support the work of the HRA and Grand Marais Planning and Zoning Commission by voting to change the zoning to allow for residential use. Thank you for your service to our community, and I look forward to many more conversations around this potential project as well as others as we tackle our housing crisis. Let's get done.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
That's how he would have read it, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
All right, and with that, then, we are done with our open forum. Moving on to approving the consent agenda. Everyone have a chance to take a look at the bills, review the meeting minutes, anything there you have comments or questions on?
I would motion to approve the consent agenda.
I would second.
Okay. And we're going to be signing the Grand Marais State Bank signatures. That's what you want later on, right? That's part of the consent agenda, and Melissa's made sure we go nowhere before we do that.
That's right.
All right, so
Right.
any further discussion? All right, everyone, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I think that was everybody. All right, we're all set with that. We are going to make one change to the larger agenda. The Park Master Plan proposal, we're going to postpone till our next meeting because Chris Hood still needs to look over a few more things on that.
Okay.
He started that process, but just a few other things he'd like to do. So we're going to remove that if that's okay for this evening. And
Sure,
we'll
that's
come
fine.
back to it. I'm assuming that's not really changing any larger timelines on anything that the park board needs to do or anything?
At this point, I'm assuming that the approval is done other than the approval to sign the contract. So I don't believe there's any concern about moving forward.
Okay.
As far as timing or doing anything that way? Okay.
Not sure what their timeline was. They
They
have it.
have a suggested
They have
timeline
it
you can
spelled
see
out.
in the packet.
Yeah.
We haven't actually scheduled anything yet,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
nothing's affected that way.
All right. well, then we'll move on to, this would be the first reading of that ordinance. Let me just skip ahead here.
I'm already there.
Oh, you're good.
Paper. Sorry.
I'm
Anyway.
gonna have to ask Dave Mills, because, look, yeah, he's got a little competition going in the meeting. I'm gonna ask what they're doing against that, see how we're gonna.
Yeah.
come on.
Okay.
All right.
Very good.
Do we just need to read this time? Or discuss it much, the first reading?
I think that it's up to you what you want to go over in terms of the report of the planning commission meeting, or if you have any questions, or if you have anything about the ordinance, which is, although very wordy, quite simple. And if not, move on to motion.
There's a lot of legalese. We saw the findings. Are there any questions? I mean,
It's probably worth just reiterating some of the concerns that were raised at the meeting.
Yeah.
That I
Yeah.
thought were handled very well at the meeting.
Okay.
That some of the residents that came to comment wanted to make sure that we thought about the use of that woods right now for recreational purposes is valued. And there are potential wetland concerns in the woods. The views will be affected by changing it from woods to residential use. And maybe most importantly, the intersection has some safety issues that are worth spending a little more time on before we're done with this process. The Planning Commission was grateful to accept all those comments, and certainly seems committed to continuing to think about those issues as this project moves forward. The HRA also had board members there, and they also expressed that same appreciation to hear those comments and commitment to work on those issues.
Do you have anything?
well, I mean, I guess as I was, reviewing it and thinking back to when, like Stacy and I had moved, that whole section into R1, it did seem like, this makes sense. It's across the road. And even if nothing happens, it would still make sense to make that area R1. And it would still be on whoever develops it to deal with all those issues. And we would ask that of them. And one thing too is we're going to get a couple more swipes at the apple no matter what happens there. So I felt pretty confident in the move.
Yeah, and that's another good point is making sure people understand that there isn't a pre-done, like, architectural building design with all
Right.
the things set in place yet. And that's already conversation that we're hearing. So it's important for people to understand exactly where you're at in this
Yeah.
process and where you're not. The
Yep.
whole thing. So,
Yep.
anyone else had, or did anyone get any other feedback or commentary at all?
Yeah, I mean, I got a little feedback. I don't, and I think I talked through it a little bit, but I think that there was this conception that what we were talking about was putting up a high rise right now, right?
Right.
And so, separating those two out, while it's difficult, is still, I think, appropriate. Like
Yeah.
Mike said, no matter what, it's like R1 is still a better probable use than
Yeah.
how it sits, right? So,
Yeah.
there'll be plenty of other time to talk about.
What actually
Yeah.
happens. Yep. Yeah.
I think one thing that I wanted to just reiterate was, when you have R1, you kind of support that property in a different way, right? So, either with our pedestrian plan or water issues. I mean, I think the fire chief had mentioned a few things and talking about some logistical problems, right? Potential problems with that area. And so, how do we manage that? Who's responsible for managing that? Who's paying for it, right? Those are just some
Yeah.
of the questions that I've got, and I think the answer that I received was that there should be no assumption that the city is going to be responsible for providing
Right.
additional
Yeah.
service to that R1, right? That,
Yeah, just because it's been flipped doesn't mean like we're gonna go out there
doesn't mean
tomorrow.
that
and-
we're running
Yeah.
pavement and running sidewalks
Right.
and doing Right.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Enhancing infrastructure and all that stuff in preparation for the developer.
Okay. Well, I view this as just, like everyone has said, just one more incremental step forward, but it'll be obvious, there'll be lots of conversation and discussion, and we'll be active partners in this whole process as it moves forward, so.
Yeah.
Pretty good
Right.
with that. Anything else that we need to think about with this?
I think that, I don't think so. I don't think at this first stage. I think making that into R1 makes sense, and we'll go from there. We'll see what comes forward.
Either of you two have any thoughts on that?
No, the only feedback I got were from a few people who were consistent with some of the things you guys have already talked about, safety being one of them. The Gumphin Trail was realigned and changed the way it is right now to try to make that safer than what it was. So some people just said, well, if we add more congestion to that area, are we counteractive of what we did years ago to realign the Gumphin Trail? So that was a concern, safety. And the other concern that some people had that talked to me about it would be aesthetics. How's it gonna look? Are the woods gonna still kind of stay intact to somewhat shelter the buildings from building or buildings, depending on how we develop this or how it gets developed? From the eye-line sight of the public who makes that bend and goes up the trail, I think that's the concern of the people that I've talked to.
Yep.
I guess that's about it. You know, safety in the realm of the truck traffic. You know, we've dealt with jake braking already with people that live a mile down the road. So my concern is how are we gonna deal with jake braking with people that live like on that corner? You know, so that's something that
Yeah.
we need to consider as we move ahead on this.
Well, we talked about it.
The noise
sheriff
and
was there,
safety and all that kind of
Yeah.
thing, so.
Had the
Can't
same answer.
underestimate how impactful that is on that corner.
Right.
We're fortunate that Anton's still on the planning commission, so it was discussed.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, it's just the concerns that people have had, that's all.
Yeah.
And somebody else talked to me just yesterday, actually, and said, do we have any other land besides this piece of land? I mean, that was a question thrown at me, and I'm going, well, have you guys, you know, I'm just throwing it out there.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This may not be, is this the best piece? We don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there for discussion. I know we're looking
Well-
at a rezoning thing tonight.
Yeah.
But as we move forward,
Right.
all these questions are gonna start popping up.
Right.
So,
And I think for the rezoning, it does make sense. I mean, people have been marching that way, asking for us to rezone slowly but surely, you know, here's a house, here's a spot. You know, so I feel like in terms of that, becoming R1 as far as anything else, yeah, agreed. You know, there's gonna be some discussion on that.
Well, I think there's definitely other places, and we should do those too. Like, this is just the start. And it's a, you know, sports saying the most important ability is availability. That's really one of the key
yeah.
values of this piece of property is it's there, it's accessible, it's got utilities, it's owned by us, it's ready to go.
Those are just the community type feedback that I've gotten when I talk to
Yeah.
people, so.
No, that's good.
That's my 25 cents worth.
I think a lot of it's pretty consistent. I don't think there's been anything too off. I mean, I think we've all kind of heard the same things.
Yeah.
So, all right.
It's probably worth remembering too, there were a lot of folks at the meeting that were expressing support, just like you had today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 And I'd also just like to say that I had comments in support of it. I don't know. The only issue that got brought up to me was definitely the congestion. So,
Yeah.
and I wonder if you could alleviate that by having some mixed use up there, but
Mm.
that would be something for the future. It wouldn't be a right now thing. So,
And then there's always the commentary, all that kind of thing is relative. If you were in a larger urban area, you wouldn't call that a lot of congestion.
Right.
If you live near the airport, you wouldn't maybe say as much about the Jake breaks.
Right.
If you've ever lived like on a train track, you might also.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm not trying to minimize it,
Yeah.
but there is a certain amount of relativity to all,
Right.
you know. Anyways, but they're all very important things. They've all been expressed multiple times. And the main thing is not that they overweight things, but that they're there so we make sure they're in consideration when you plan everything out
Right on.
and think things through, that you're taking it all
Absolutely.
into consideration. So, with that, would anyone like to make a motion?
I would make a motion to adopt ordinance 2023-02, an HRA rezone RC to R1.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
All right, everyone in favor?
Right?
Aye.
Okay. I think that leaves no opposed.
We'll take it up in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Good.
Back again.
Second time, yes. All right, very good. Thanks, everyone, on that. Next up is Lindstrom's Rain Garden. This is another joint venture working with Soil and Water, the county, and obviously the city as well.
This one's on our list of things we've had on the to-do list that we need to get going before construction season sneaks up upon us. And so, here it is, all finished, ready to go, please approve.
Am I right to assume that these are a little bit better put together than earlier ones?
The contract or the project?
Yeah, the
Well,
contract.
the contract's very, very similar to the ones we've done in the past.
Yeah,
This one we
okay.
had to kind of redo a little bit because the homeowners, the stewards, are going to be hiring the contractor to do the work directly, and in the past, either the city or Soil and Water has done that. So we just wanted to make sure there was some extra language to deal with if issues that may arise.
Got it.
Okay.
But otherwise, it's about the same contract.
Okay. Did anyone have any questions about this? Look at
Well,
the
just
pictures.
the, from me, we don't, I mean, there's no plans for the city to do any sidewalks on Broadway at any time in the future that,
I don't think this will be on Broadway. I think it's actually on the street above.
oh,
And I don't think,
I must have looked at that map wrong.
Well, it's so close.
I mean-
Thought there was like
It's on the corner.
35 by 40-foot area along North
So, I
Broadway.
mean, when you
Yeah.
look at it, yeah, I mean, that is.
Yeah, this is Broadway here, and then there's the road. This is
Yeah.
in the right of way.
Yeah, it's on the corner. I
Yeah,
think
which
most of
where
it
a
goes-
sidewalk would be, right?
Yeah, most of it goes this way. But the thing says that at any time the city has to do something, we can, for good reason, do,
Yeah.
change that.
Well, the other
rate.
side of the street is probably a better site for sidewalk, but just that way.
and the
like-
Broadway is one where the pedestrian plan does say sidewalks are a good idea. But Broadway is also a county road.
It's a county road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think there's
know
ways
that.
to provide sidewalks there that would not interfere with this construction.
But just in general, if something came up like something like that, where would that leave the city? And the answer is we still have access to do what we need to do.
Yeah, but it is something good to think about. These deals, typically when we're not involved in a deal between Soil and Water and a steward, one of their requirements of their funders is a 10-year commitment to maintain the improvement or to provide a similar improvement. So we would honor that type of commitment too, even though we are saying we're not giving away any rights to use the public space for the public's purpose. And if we decide we need to do something different with it, we have the right to do that. We'll also look to modify or replace the feature that's getting constructed, just to
Gotcha.
honor that
Okay.
10-year commitment.
Yeah.
But the contract doesn't say that that's our responsibility. It's just our good relationship with Soil and Water that does.
So more of an implied. Okay.
And then maintenance of this is on the homeowner
Most of the maintenance is.
as time goes on.
So, one of the things that the city is required to do is work with Soil and Water to coordinate the maintenance and management of the project if the stewards can no longer do it. So
Okay.
I actually think that's more likely to fall on Soil and Water than us. They'll find another steward, or they have staff seasonally that can help with things. And on some of these deals, not this one, I don't think, there's a grit catch basin that we come and empty from time to time.
Right.
There might be some of that here as well. But other than that, the typical things you'd consider garden maintenance are exactly what the steward is for.
Okay.
And it's the model that really makes these work, to have somebody right there that takes ownership of it, and likes it to look good, and is willing to spend the time on it.
Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else with that? That's okay. All right. Anyone like
good.
to make a motion?
Let's see, I would make a motion to approve the, I guess, the rain garden agreement with Soil and Water.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. For any further discussion? Ooh, quiet. Not even crickets. Okay.
There you go. Just,
Maybe bring my pet
Thank
cricket
you.
in.
Okay. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Alrighty. No opposed, and with that, we're passed on that one. It's fun to think about spring, just a little bit. I can walk by and
Just a
see
little
how
bit.
it comes to life.
We got another Soil and Water item.
Oh, we're not
Are we
doing
talking- oh.
master plan,
Yep.
right? Did I miss one?
We're skipping the
Fourth Ave.
HKGI deal.
Well, before
Yeah.
that is a
Fourth
series
Avenue.
of quotes for Fourth Avenue. So remember, Fourth Avenue is the undeveloped chunk of street above First Street and below Second Street on Fourth Avenue.
oh, right.
And it's been a while since we've talked about this project, and some of you maybe haven't ever talked about this project. But if you can picture this location, it's severely eroded. And
Oh,
we have been working with Soil and Water. Their engineer has designed some controls. Originally, the idea was something a little bigger than this that would actually take the water at the top of that hill and divert it into the natural channel that goes through the private property on the east side of there. But rather than try to negotiate some kind of permanent drainage easement across private property, we thought, let's just start with this. Can we do a project that stays in the right-of-way and improves it to prevent erosion in the future, so that we don't have a big delta of sand and gravel at the bottom that covers our sidewalk for so many years? I didn't even know we had one for a very long time. It's really quite a spot. So the Soil and Water engineer designed it. Soil and Water staff, you can see Phil's note here, went out and solicited quotes to do the construction. We received those quotes, and here they are. And we're recommending that the city, us, hire Dirt Candy Designs to do the project at the quoted price of $7,783.19. As you can see, Phil also mentions it's up to $1,500 of additional costs are probably going to come with some additional items that were not included in the quotes. You can also see that the original engineer's cost estimate was about $9,100, so we're just about right there in the money.
Okay.
And
Yeah, that
like
was
all
great.
of our projects with Soil and Water, they are the primary funder of this work. So once again, this is thanks out to Cook County Soil and Water for all the hard work that they do on our behalf, both helping us create a stormwater management plan and helping us implement it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Would anyone like to make a motion on this?
I would motion to approve the improvement of Fourth Avenue.
Second?
I'd second that.
All right, any further discussion? All right,
Nope.
all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right.
What's the construction time on this? Are they timing this when we redo that street, or are they gonna do this prior to that street?
Yeah, they'll do this as soon as weather and their schedule allows this year.
Okay.
That street's reconstruction is, as of yet, unscheduled.
We've been talking about it, though, for quite a while.
Yep.
Yeah.
My brother's gonna be disappointed. He likes going up that.
Well, you can probably still ride your bike up there, but I wouldn't try driving it.
Oh, he's driven up it.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Dog
ne-
leash.
Yeah.
Dog leash.
Leashes. As you'll recall a while ago, I don't know if everyone was here that night or not, Scott Waterhouse came to talk to us a little bit about dog leashes. Was everyone here?
I was.
Yep, I was here, I think you guys.
So I had a meeting with Scott and then went, and he had other thoughts and comments just in general. So we went out and grabbed the two most pertinent pieces of our current city code. I also spent time looking at cities in, mostly around the metro, to see what they had for their current laws. And I did include in here, just for us to discuss, some other points of this that we might also want to think through while we're revamping this. The first part that we need to tend to, which we've got here in writing, is there's a little discrepancy between two of the existing pieces of our current code. And assuming you had a chance to read that. And then the discussion items would be, some cities say very clearly that if you're on your own property with your own pet, or by permission on someone else's property, you do not need to have that dog leashed or whatever, that's fine. So if we want to make any clarifications like that. The other is, some communities consider an electronic collar, an e-collar, the same as a leash. If you want to consider that, though it is not a lot. And I gave just a few links there, references. Some, and some of them do have leash length restrictions. And when I talked to Pat Elias and the sheriff about this, he felt that that was just an added kind of complication to enforcement, that a leash is a leash. And asking to go and have it measured
Right.
on top of it was probably not necessary. And then some communities have made allowances for, if you're busy with either training your pet, maybe playing fetch in the lake, or frisbee, whatever, that's in a permissible use as well, to have your dog off a leash. So those are just other things if you'd like to consider any of those. Any thoughts? Did you guys
Do we
have a
have
chance
a
to
copy
read
of,
this
our-
yet?
I did, I
Yeah.
just didn't, like, what is our current leash?
Well, one is definition, and under restrained, your dog is considered restrained if it's on the premises of its owner or is confined in a suitable vehicle. So it's real common to say if a dog's in a car, they're contained. Or other enclosure. I don't know, I never think about that, I don't know if that's broad or not. Or is accompanied by and under the immediate and effective control, either by leash or command of a responsible person. And that "or" is something we need to think through. And then the other part is restraint within city limits. No pet, so it's not just dogs, shall be permitted outside the confines of a house or other building or restrictive fence unless such animal is on a leash or is kept under the control of the owner or person charged with its care. No unattended pet shall be tethered or leashed so it is allowed to reach the public street or sidewalk. So if they are leashed, they've got to be back away. But these aren't quite consistent, so we need at bare minimum to clean them up just a little bit.
The weird part to me is that the definition of restraint, the term's not used in an active way in the ordinance. It's actually not necessary at all, and all it does is create confusion because it's different than when we talk about restraint in an active way in the ordinance. So, I mean, a simple fix would be to just get rid of that definition. another way to do it would be just to change the definition or change the restraint active language so that they're the same.
And so, I don't know. Any initial thoughts? I've been thinking about this, so if someone else wants to think out loud.
No.
Well, I'll tell you. So, I mean, the e-leash was one of the things being considered, and you cite some examples in here of where there may be allowed, right? I would say that in knowing dogs, and I have dogs, like, the difference with Grand Marais and these other towns is we have different people and different dogs almost every day, right? And that poses, that can pose, it's just different, right? It's not your classic neighborhood setting when you have as many visitors as we have. And so, and I think if there's gonna be a problem as a result of a dog being on the e-collar, you're not gonna know you have a problem until you have a problem, right? Where a leash is traditional as we know them, there's a direct control, right? There's less failure in that than batteries or dropping or breaking, or maybe it isn't even an e-leash, right? Maybe, I don't know, right?
Right,
So-
or not fit correctly.
Right, and how do we know? How are we gonna do that? So, I'm not a huge fan of the e-leash as a solution, but just,
Well, my big question about that was if you have, an electronic fence, it's posted, and as you're walking by, whatever, you're seeing
I hate
that.
those.
But I don't know at a distance, there's no requirement or no way you know that that's controlling that dog,
Right.
right? I mean, it isn't like, what are they, companion dogs or whatever that are trained, they're wearing their vest, you see that, you know that. But I wouldn't know walking, or in the dark or whatever, I wouldn't know that that's even that dog had anything, right, necessarily. It's not like they're gonna be walking down the street with a little flag that says, I'm on an e-leash,
like beacon.
Yeah. I don't know, so that was one of my
We
thoughts.
could make that a requirement.
We could throw that in there, I mean,
Yeah.
why
You
not?
have an e-leash, you have
Along
to have a
with the
beacon.
e-leash, you have to have a beacon.
I mean, that it's humorous, but it's also right on point. Like, that is what this is about. It's not even just, are you good at controlling your dog? It's, what are the effects that are happening outside of you about the other people instead?
Yeah.
And what do they think, and what are their expectations, and what other effects are being created?
I mean, I do like sort of the simplicity of eliminating the restraint one and just, that definition and just saying like, this is what it is. Because it seems like this gets to it. I mean, I like the idea of the e-leash and all that kind of thing, but I think, especially like Ben was pointing out, this kind of environment that we live in, where new people all the time, who knows if this dog is under control or animal is under control or not. I do like having it on a leash and under control.
Having used an e-leash before, I've found that it's actually quite good at controlling the dogs, and some of them you can even set how far away they can go from you.
Mhm.
So I think they're really interesting, to say the least. But yeah, if you run out of batteries on them, they are useless. But same thing can be said if you have an old leash and it breaks. That's happened to me twice.
Right, for sure.
So
Yeah.
that's really the only thing that I can think of. But I would be in support of adding e-leashes to it, to the code. But
Craig?
Well, I understand the concern of some people that have very well-trained pets, and they feel that a leash isn't necessary, and I do probably agree with them. I mean, I do agree with them. But I also have to protect the people within our community that come up here that may not be used to having a dog walking around not on a leash, because they probably came from an area or a neighborhood or a city where they have mandatory leash laws. I mean, I know we have a leash law in the rec park, and I don't think that's ever going to go away, just for safety of the people
Yeah.
who stay at the park. It's to protect everybody, not just the dog owner. but also everybody within the vicinity of that animal as it's walking with its owner. So, I mean, if we have to rewrite our existing code a little bit so it's easier to understand, I'm not on board with eliminating a leash law. And also, we have to be somewhat careful about how we write this so that we can enforce it. But I know in the past, I think we've had some issues with maybe individual judgment against a dog owner who has a dog that's not on a leash being continuously picked up by or stopped by a deputy and talked to, get your dog on a leash, get your dog on a leash. And I think, depending on where the person is and where they're walking, where they are, I think some discretion needs to be used. You know, I mean,
But
if you,
that's not on our part. you know?
well, no, it's not on our part, but if we're gonna write a leash law, if we're gonna have a leash law, then we have a leash law.
Yeah,
So
no, yeah.
if I'm walking my dog up the Gunflint Trail and I'm still in the city, but I'm not around any houses, I'm not around anybody, and I happen to take it off the leash because I know it's gonna stay by me and walk with me, then a deputy pulls up and tells me, hey, get that dog on a leash. Well, technically, he's right. But where I'm at, there's nobody around. I mean, you know, you still have a law you gotta enforce. So I think
Right.
people need to understand that if we're gonna do this, that's what it is. All you gotta do is take your dog out of the city and you can exercise whatever you wanna exercise. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
your right to control your dog or not control your dog, take it to the dog park, you know.
I mean, that's just it. I mean, we've got the dog park. We have
So I just think the leash law basically is in place for cities and communities to protecting the public.
Yeah.
And you're also protecting possible lawsuits between people and between the city and whatever might happen, you know. So, I don't know, that's my opinion. I don't really foresee going away from the leash law,
No, I don't think that was our,
you know, and I know that's been talked about, but
is there any thoughts about any permissible off-leash situations?
I think
Like,
private property, I think, would be one of
Sure.
those.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
You're
your-
gonna let your dog outside, right?
I mean, that,
Yeah.
I guess, you know, like, that is part of the first one here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And part of that definition, I mean, yeah, it's one reason why the strategy might be different than just get rid of restraint Right. definition, because we may decide we want to use it Yeah. if we change some of these other things.
Any thoughts about that when you're on your own property? Or like they do know, you know, someone else's. You're over at your best friend's house and they say it's okay.
Right.
Right.
Whatever.
I think as long as you're comfortable on your own private property, letting your animals outside on your property, that's fine, but, you know, it could be nice, especially when you're training them when they're really young. It could be good to have some kind of barrier, but I don't think that's anything we could enforce.
And I think I'm right in saying that it is, at least what I have read, is they make it clear that it is the owner's, has full responsibility if something happens
Yep.
with their pet, no matter what the situation. They are the ones responsible
That's right.
for
Yep.
that. Okay. And anything else about any activities, any discussion you want there, or no?
The current language doesn't allow for dogs to run and play at Lake Superior and off a leash, is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I would say that's it. In
It
this
happens
case,
a lot. Has
Yeah.
anybody that
Yeah.
you know of ever been cited for an animal off leash jumping in the water?
I don't know that.
We don't know, yeah, we could
Right.
ask if we wanted to know.
Yeah.
My suspicion is, if there's ever been any interactions, it's not because they were in the water, it's because there was a different problem also.
Different issue.
Yeah. Oh, and I did ask, when I was sitting there with Pat, I forgot, I asked him, how many calls have you gotten around this whole topic in general or whatever, and he can instantly go in and filter it down, and the number was really pretty low. I wanna say, for a year, less than 24, but he said that doesn't mean it's this, it could be anything pet related, like my dog is lost.
Oh,
He
So
couldn't
all
get
things
it down
pets.
to
Just
a complaint about a dog off a leash, which I still think, considering the number of pet owners we have, plus all the visitors, because we're known as a dog-friendly town
Pretty,
for
it's a
people.
pretty low number.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
say that's pretty low, and knowing some of those are definitely lost dogs and whatever,
No.
I felt a lot better hearing that.
And 2 of those was my dog twice, so.
That
This
leash
year?
broke.
Just so you know.
She get an e-collar.
Stop.
So, yeah, I just wanted to bring up all these other things that I thought might have application, or make sure you were aware that they were there as topics and that other cities consider. I don't know. Just thought we should have a good broad conversation. If
Yeah.
anyone has any motivations around that or not.
I'm hearing folks say, keep the leash requirement,
yeah.
allow off-leash with the permission of a private property owner, allow for some activities off-leash. And we can draft up some ordinance language for you to look at that tries to capture that, and you can have more discussions about it.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Mike.
You have to mention the dog park or not?
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
at the end of this, like, we don't talk about it now, but it needs to be at least recognized in the ordinance.
Well, I mean, I think the people that go to the dog park, do they have a sign up there or something that says off-leash dog park?
Yes, so, and we have the lease with them, and the lease requires rules, and the rules are also posted.
Okay.
So that we've kind of created a whole system of regulating that, but our ordinance doesn't actually allow it, so it's kind
No.
of,
Okay.
just needs to be addressed.
All right.
And then one thing that's different in other websites, just in their general look, but they have a lot of them have just a really nice summary page in very just plain English. And the 2 things they consistently list is, pick up after your dog, and then whatever their leash law is in just a very easy summary.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times they'll have like the contact info for their dog rescue, And I guess the pound maybe, I can't remember. We
I don't know if they have
technically
any contact
one,
info
but-
for that. Like,
Right.
law enforcement is our contact
Contact.
for all animal-related stuff.
But I
Right.
thought that might be a nice thing to create a page like that, that's just very simple, very easy to read, and just reminding people of those same things when we get this done. Oh, and then
Yeah.
that would alert them to the fact that we have the off-leash part too
Yeah.
in there, so.
Like, if you want to be off-leash, we have this fantastic park.
Yeah.
Right. We can direct them to the dog park.
Yep.
Or anywhere in the county outside of the city limits.
That's right. A lot of
Or go that way, or that way,
Yes.
or that way, or that
All
way.
kinds
And
of
I'm not
places.
sure how far into the lake you have to go before it's not the city limits either, honestly.
Put them out on a paddleboard.
10 miles, I think, is the sheriff's responsibility,
Yeah.
right?
No. That must be another enclosure, I think.
Okay.
All right, so is that enough discussion then to
Oh.
give Mike and, I guess, Chris what they need? Is it?
Don't wake him.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
Poor
Chris.
Chris. He's over there dreaming about shoveling his driveway, and you guys ruined to ask him to.
We are sitting up here with no snow coming down.
It's not
at all.
snowing at all, at all.
Nice sunny day all day
Clear
today.
sky.
Bluebird
Yeah,
Day.
see the stars.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's the Aurora Borealis out there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really
that's-
spectacular.
Nice.
We're gonna move the meeting outside.
So we can enjoy the
We'll
northern
bring them
lights.
along in our iPhone.
Yep.
Come with us.
Oh, and we're gonna take Arrowhead Transit to get there. Our art was not good. So that's our last item tonight. We
Good
were.
segue.
Yeah. did that well, huh? Christy Cramblett sent a note in saying that there had been a meeting across the street at the Hub with Arrowhead Transit, trying to get a conversation going about what our community needs are for transportation. So she asked, could there be a city liaison to participate in that? So Adam.
Rowan?
Rowan?
Yeah, there we go, Rowan.
Yep.
Then I asked him some basic questions just so we know what was involved. So if we see value in this, which I'm going to assume we do,
Yeah.
participate. You can see the details if anyone would like to be the liaison for the city when their meeting schedule, and so I get an idea of the time commitment and what they're trying to achieve. So, any interest in that?
Sure. You said it first.
Yeah.
You're right.
I'm it. Okay.
All right.
Thanks,
Yeah, you were
Aaron.
mentioning transportation the other day, so, you know. you're a
I
perfect
like
guy.
buses.
There we go. Well, very good. So now we have a liaison for Arrowhead Transit, Aaron Carlson. Thank you.
Do you get free rides?
I
Feel
hope
the
so.
liaison?
I don't believe any
No?
more than anyone else does.
Oh.
I'll have to put that on in their next agenda.
Okay.
Maybe you get a free tour of the bus?
We could say free rides to city council meetings. Anybody in town who wants a free ride to a council meeting, we'll make it happen.
I like it.
Could.
There we go. Great. Oh, my heavens.
We're
Oh,
gonna
and
need to
even
fill
with-
up that new chamber.
Yeah.
That's
were
right.
together.
Need two buses.
You're right. I mean, you think this one feels empty.
Oh.
I don't actually.
Oh.
Cozy. It's cozy.
I can't believe this. We are still on time and a minute ahead, even after late start. Yes.
Well, we skipped it.
Well, we also threw.
We
up
skipped
the-
an
Oh.
We
hour
did
of
skip.
talking.
It was a brief item. I didn't expect any conversation about it.
We should be an hour behind.
All right. Shouldn't have said anything. Okay, it's time for council and staff reports. Who wants to start? Which side of the room?
Well, I can start because I got nothing.
You can skip me too.
Holy smokes,
This is
Aaron.
Going
Go, Aaron.
gang
I had
busters.
an well, not an official meeting with Arrowhead Animal Rescue, and they kind of got me updated on what sort of plans they had. They're willing to, well, there's some stuff that's been brought up where the city they think that the city will own the pound, so they want the city to start with the project of building the pound. They're willing to do fundraising for the pound. I have some notes that I'll be putting to words are hard sometimes.
Are you getting ready?
Yep.
Okay.
I've got some stuff that I'll be giving to everybody. So, yeah.
So does this mean do they need to come in front of the council and
Didn't we
talk
already
to
have
us?
this conversation? I swear.
They have
You haven't finished it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stuff that they gave to us was meeting minutes of two of the meetings from 2021, talking about the project.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
other than that, that's it for me.
Okay. We'll have to find out what that is.
Nothing for me.
Wow. All right, I better talk
Well, just-
fast then.
yeah.
It's all on you.
Because I've kind of said I think I mentioned before that I was spending a bit of time trying to figure out status on the Coast Guard building. Yes?
Yep.
So I started a bit of communicating, and my last exchange I got linked to a gentleman at the Coast Guard to confirm the process. And then just this afternoon, I asked him a bunch of questions after that, and he just answered me this afternoon. and apologized. He said he'd been out traveling. But I asked him about timelines, and, maybe these are standard responses, but he just said, these are all unique and unpredictable, so I don't have exactly. Sometimes they go very quickly, others take longer. When it moves to part 2, which goes then from when the Coast Guard officially says, okay, whatever, we're done. Then when it goes to part 2, it goes to the GSA, which is their group that takes unwanted property and disposes of it. Then the best point of contact is, he gave me the team out of Chicago that we'd be contacting and dealing with if it goes to that step. And he mentioned some other things about contacting. He made sure we had the contact in Duluth if there are any more immediate property concerns, which I believe Pat has anyways, the sheriff has. So I got that nice note back. And we also have the paperwork Mike secured that has the language around the reversion clause, but we probably we're talking like maybe we need to get that verified and get a legal opinion on it, just see for sure where we stand on that. Just, at this point, it's just gathering all the facts, where things at, who talked to, whatever, and go from there. So that's what.
So is it that it's set up that it will come back to the city, or we don't know that yet? Is that what we're talking about?
I suspect there'll be differences of opinions about that. I don't think it'll be hard for us to make the case that that is our legal right. At least make the case. Win the case? I don't know. And it's the federal government, so it's not a fair discussion, right? We're going to need to bring in a lot of different resources, I think, to make sure that the community's interests are dealt with. The bottom line is that nobody else is going to have a real easy way to acquire the property, though, because we're going to claim our right to it. And we control its zoning. So it's not really of any value to anybody if you don't want it to be. And it's obviously of value to this community. So this community is going to take a role in figuring out what the future of that property is.
So all these first steps are is just to make sure we understand where we're at and,
Was there any,
And it's under protected resources now, isn't
That's
it,
right.
Yeah, okay, good.
Oh, and I did talk to Howard Hedstrom yesterday to kind of clarify some of all this too, and he said it is on the National Register, which I didn't realize, which is,
As a place, or,
this is where I get a little confused. So you can, you're listed or you're on the register or listed property, in all intents and purposes, there's not a lot of difference, but that's like not a huge, I don't. But I was surprised that it was even on, I didn't realize it was even listed or anything with it, but apparently it is.
Yeah, I think that the right assumption to make is it's going to be very complicated to get
Yeah.
from where we are to where we want to be.
So. And that's why I feel like it's time to make sure we do know where we're at, because you don't wait until the moment's right. You gotta have your information and know what the scoop is. Be ready. And we've already made, there's already been outreach already with our legislators around it, so they know that that's an issue for us too, and we'll continue that piece as well. And potentially this will go through some kind of legislation to get everything we need, because that building would need a lot of, basically a gut job and a redo. It's not like it's just a little bit of maintenance. It's full of asbestos and there's a lot of issues, so. All right, so that was that.
Can I make a comment on this?
Yeah, thank you.
So, if there is an issue related to title of the property, then the city should be looking at commissioning a title examination of the property. That is what needs to be done, in my view.
Okay,
So that way you can determine through an examination of title, and that could either be, usually you would hire a title company to do that and give you a title report. So that really is what is needed here. And then from that, you can determine what are the city's legal rights based on what that title examination shows. Now, maybe you know what the underlying title of the property is, but based on the conversation here, it seems like there might be a question there.
I think we've got all the documents, and I've actually, we should just talk more about this next week, Chris, but I've already opened a conversation with the title company to talk
Okay.
about it. So Byers
Great.
and I have had a conversation or two, and
Okay.
we'll
Good.
see.
Good.
Yeah. and-
Just to start talking about if we might want that, what it would look like, who would be the right person to do it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. I had a meeting with the North Shore Management Board. The main topic was they reviewed their erosion hazard zone project map. Does anyone go and look at the GIS maps around the county? The aerial map, you can go out and look at
Yep.
any county you want, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So it's similar to that, and then, but they layered it, and they have sections along the shore where they mapped over time. Just, they're trying to track erosion, where it's happening, what, how, you know, how bad, how steep, whatever.
Mhm.
So we just sort of reviewed that project and what it, you know, the value add and the whole deal.
Yeah.
And I had 3 EDA meetings since we last met.
Wow.
Is everyone aware that the EDA and the HRA are considering merging?
Yes.
Heard that, yeah.
Yeah. So Dave as city representative, Dave Mills as county representative, we were invited to one meeting just at a high level to kind of be introduced to the topic and all of that. Then we had one meeting canceled and another one occurred the other week with the HRA board present to discuss the topic as well. And I believe there were 3 HRA members. They only have 4. They used to have, there were 5 in total, now they're down to 4. I believe 3 were in attendance, not 4. I think I have that right. There were a lot of questions. It's listening to the questions from the HRA board, I realized they were very unfamiliar with the EDA and had a lot of questions about its structure and what its main things it was working on and just the whole thing. And so one of the takeaways from that is that they're going to be given, kind of like I got a little onboarding primer sheet about the EDA, so they have something to reference. And then everyone just had an opportunity to go around the room and talk about what they thought about this, you know, what would be advantages, whatever, of doing this. And the ultimate, there'll be another meeting again and more discussion, and each of those boards will have to decide if they want to move forward with this, and if they do, the final vote comes here into the county. It's not their decision. It's the city decision and a county decision.
So we would, both the city and the county have to sign off on it?
Well,
Yeah.
we're not sure what it is yet, too.
Right. Yeah,
The
I mean-
HRA is just a county entity, but you have ceded your HRA authority to them to act on your behalf in the city limits.
Right.
So that might be affected. The EDA is a statutorily created joint entity between the city and the county. So not only would the city and the county both have to say yay to any changes to it, we probably need to get some statutory changes made as well. So much trickier. But we don't really know what the end goal is yet. So it's hard to say what steps are going to be required.
Yeah. But I thought that was important just for everyone to understand that the ultimate decision, if they proceed,
What's the motivation behind it? Have you,
I was gonna
like,
ask.
they're looking for cost and time efficiencies out of it. I don't believe there'll be any cost dollar savings. You still have to pay people. They're talking about, which makes total sense. Either way, I'm assuming, you know, Jason will need more help, but he will certainly need, okay, back this up, excuse me. The potential candidate, should this move forward to be over both of this, would be Jason Hale. That's not a given, but that's a lot of the reason why this is sprung to life. so I'm using his name, but I probably shouldn't, just whoever that new director would be of the combined entity, would need more help. And at this point, the word we're using to define that is project manager. There was conversation, so last night I had an EDA meeting, and there they brought up the need to consider some administrative help potentially. So I would assume there'd be a larger budget needed. But a lot of that, they also felt there was redundancies of meeting prep and, where to be and different things.
It was hard to understand like the obvious benefits, but the obvious motivation for the conversation is pretty clear. The EDA director left, and they are taking this opportunity to rethink, is this how we want to be organized? And
Okay.
because
Sorry.
Jason's here and has expertise that could potentially serve both, that's just one idea to look at. That seems, to me anyway, to be the real motivation for the conversation, is that change. The EDA director left, and Jason is here. The why are we looking at this idea? There's a lot of crossover in terms of the functions between the two entities. This HRA isn't a owner of public housing HRA, which a lot of standalone ones are. This is really more of a development board, so economic development, HRA development are similar functions. But the reason we created the HRA as a separate entity in the first place, if I remember correctly, was because we wanted to focus on housing.
That's
We
it.
wanted
Yeah.
that group to
It's like
be just,
tunnel vision.
that's it. That's
Right.
your job,
So that I don't
nothing else.
understand that, yeah.
And so this group's definitely recognized that if they decide to combine, it may bear long-term benefits, but the short-term cost will be, we will not be focusing solely on housing in the short term.
Well, maybe I'm misremembering this, but I remember Marais Somnus said that there was a bit of an agreement that housing would be the focus, at least for the short term.
Everybody
But-
said that.
Right.
But they
But-
weren't listening
Obvious
to
is that-
themselves
is
if
that
they
all
thought that was
have other
true.
Needs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so time gets sucked away from you, right?
Yeah.
But,
You can't control
Yeah.
when all your other priorities pop, because nothing ever works like that. And everything else doesn't lay
and we're
lie
not even
low.
a year into the HRA, right? So I mean, we're still trying to figure out, do we, like,
So the main, I want to make sure it's on everybody's radar, just because it may come, and so please pay attention, because it's a big decision, is really why I wanted to, and I wanted to make sure we understood that, because I didn't initially, that ultimately the county and the city won't be making this decision, so, want to think about it. If it comes to that, just so it's on everyone's radar. We'll see.
Yeah, one of the things
Yes.
that was talked about was how this gets rolled out in front of the county board and the city council, like the timing of that, how far along do they want to be developed with their ideas before they come talk to you? But they have to come talk to you.
Mhm. They'll have to present whatever they do, so. And whatever information we have or whatever, I'll keep passing that along, as well. So, I guess that's it.
Whoa. We're close.
Whoa.
Pretty close.
5 minutes.
All right. Anything else? All right, we're adjourned then. Good
Don't-
night.
yeah,
Go
don't,
shop.